Hello folks, good to see you again. David here with another video, and this time we are going to go back to some basics. Now, at the start of the year I did say that we hadn't done a great deal of science fiction stuff on this channel. We're going to remedy that right now, and we're going to go with the basics. We're going to go with some floor tiles. We're going to go through some common household things, some reclaimed material, and we'll see if you can use those for ideas for getting some scenery for your sci-fi games. So we're going to make a couple of variations of the classic 3x3 dungeon tile, even though it's not a dungeon, it's science fiction. And for that we need to start marking our piece out in 7.5 centimetre blocks. And there. And there. Now this is sheet styrene that I'm using. You've seen me use it before, and I got a huge massive sheet of this stuff for about $5 US, and I still haven't used all of it. This is just a little offcut, and I've still got massive amounts left. Now you have seen me cut this before. It just needs a good deep score, and I'm using a metal ruler. And then it just snaps like that. Now if you're of a certain age like me and essentially grew up in the 70s and 80s, then depending on where you come from, science fiction is either an awful lot of bright plastic and, well, quite possibly tin foil if it's British sci-fi, or America, it was an awful lot of brushed concrete and stainless steel. We're going for the British version here. And I'm just going to use a pencil to mark off the edges for each of the squares. And this is just a compass, school one, your kids will have one. And I am just using that to etch the surface. We're just going to etch out those grid patterns. And now that the grid's on, this is a pencil, and I'm using a 2B rather than an HB. And I am just going to follow in the groove like that. Managed to miss that one there. And because we've etched it, the lead from the pencil will stay in there quite nicely, and then we can just give it a wee bit of a wipe just to tidy up the surface. This is just a tissue, one floor tile, done. Now if you think that's a little bit too regular, we can go with an implied grid pattern. Let me mark this one out, and again I'm just using the compass point to etch it. But this time I'm not going to go all the way across. Just there. And then give it a wipe off. So we've got an implied grid there, because you can see that these are two separate areas, and I've even put little handles on there, so that's an access panel in the floor. Now if that kind of tile is a little bit too clean and pristine for you, we can always go for something a little bit more scungy, let's say Alien or Space Hulk, if that's what you're into. Let me introduce you to a new material. This is a roll of sticky back plastic, and another new material. This is fabric, it's called twill. I've probably mispronounced that, so I'll put the spelling up on screen. It's the kind of thing that they use for ballerinas costumes and things like that, I think, but it is dirt cheap. And you have actually seen me use this in a oak buggy conversion. I'll leave a link up there, even though I didn't go into actually how I constructed it. So let me get these two cut down into something that is a little bit more manageable. So I've cut out a piece of twill that is larger than our tile. We want a little bit of overhang while we're constructing it. And I've also used a guillotine to get some strips of the sticky back plastic. I've got some which are around about 2mm wide, and then I've got some thicker ones for the edges. Now, this is just a bog standard glue stick, and I am going to cover this completely. Now I'm going to take a little bit of time to make this up and try and get it on as best as I can, because we do want the mesh kind of looking like mesh, and then just gently smooth it all down so that it covers it like that. And we'll just give that a couple of minutes to dry. In fact, you may even find that just using the glue stick itself means that you can really press down and get it to really adhere. Now that that's stuck, I'm just going to use a pair of scissors and trim the edges, and I'm getting as close to the edge as I possibly can. Now on the edges, just so I know where I'm going, I'm just going to mark with a pencil where the grids are going to be, and now we're going to use the sticky back plastic to make the grid lines. So I'll just get a small piece, and I've cut it oversized because it's always a bit of a pain getting the backing off, and you always kind of crumple it a little bit. Stick it down firmly, and we'll do that with the others. So I've got the cross members on here. Now I was originally going to use sticky back plastic to do the edging for it, but I found out that the sticky back plastic I have doesn't fold around the edges well, it keeps sticking up. So I will go back and I will use the material that I used in the oak conversion to finish this one off. We'll put this to one side for the moment, because while we have the sticky back plastic out, I want to introduce you to some other materials. This is the packaging from a ready-made pizza, and as you can see it has a lovely textured pattern on it. So why don't we make another tile out of this stuff? I'll get this cut down to size. Now this is a little bit on the flimsy side for a game tile, so all I'm going to do is mount it onto some reclaimed corrugated cardboard, and I'm just going to use some super glue for that. Give it a wee trim, and then we'll start applying the sticky back plastic in exactly the same way we did with the other one. And there you have the sticky back plastic grid all put on, so that one is ready for a paint job. Now the reason why I wanted to show you that one using essentially reclaimed material is because food packaging, things like that, have loads and loads of different lovely shapes on. This is a sushi tray that would make great side walls, possibly floor as well. Placemat, more of sort of like the mesh stuff that we use the twill for. This is a drawer liner, and as you can see it's got lovely rib material, that's all nice and artificial. That'll go brilliant in a sci-fi setting. And these ones are drawer liners as well, slightly different. They've got sort of like a bobbly effect. In fact, that almost sort of really lends itself to TARDIS walls. Hey, I've got some Doctor Who miniatures. There you go. Alright, let's get back to this one with the mesh pattern and finish that one off. Now, for the edging, I am going to use strips of plain old A4 paper. Now, the first thing to do is to just get a couple of mil of fold on the long edge. So get me a ruler like that, hold it down, lift it up like that, and then just run the back of my finger under it to get a nice crease. And now what I'm going to do is grab some super glue, and just into that fold I am going to run a bead of super glue all the way along, and then feed that in, turn it upside down like that, make sure it is buttoning up properly, and then give it a good press down while it sets. And then I'm doing the opposite side in exactly the same way. And then I'll wait for the glue to dry, and I will snip these ends off, fold it over and glue it on the bottom. There you have it, tile all done and bordered. I will get this one off for a paint job, because apart from an undercoat, we are going to do a little bit of weathering on this one, because this is a scungy tile. Back in a second with that. Base coats have been done on the two pieces that I'm going to be painting, and this pizza packing one I've just done in a grey, and I'll be perfectly honest, yeah, I could put a bit of highlighting on that, but I'm not going to bother. That is good enough as far as I'm concerned, so I will put that to one side and say it's done. The scungy one, however, still needs a little bit of work. Black base coat, and now it is going to be 3 quick coats of paint. First of all, let's hit it with a quick dry brush of metal just to bring out the detail on that sort of grid pattern work, just like that. Then using the sponge technique, let's just get some orange on there and start making it look a bit more like it's sort of scungy and rusty. And I'm putting the orange on first, as I always do, to signify that being the new rust, and then backing it up with a bit of a darker brown just to get it looking like it's old and worn. And you know what? That to me is looking scungy enough for the bowels of any spaceship. I'm going to call that one done as well. Now, of course, I couldn't let you go away without showing you some ideas for wall pieces as well. I've just used the pattern for these first easy pieces that I did, and I've done a double wall section there, same scoring, same pencil mark. I've just super glued a bit of very thin clear plastic to the bottom so that it will actually stand up, and I've added some clear plastic tubing there. Now the thin plastic is so that it will sit under the tile without, you know, propping it up too much, and that tubing adds a little bit of gap, because I always find that if the wall is butting right up to the very edge of a floor tile, then, you know, if any of your miniatures have a little bit of overhang on arms or weapons or legs that are hanging over the sort of edge of the base, it does make it very difficult to actually place them on those very edge squares. And having that sort of spacer, if you like, just allows you that little bit of extra leeway in which to place your miniatures. But of course the best reason for using clear tubing is because it lends itself to adding lighting effects. Let's get some group photos of these pieces. Well, that about wraps it up for another video from me. If there's something you want to see me cover in the future, whether it's a particular project or a genre, pop a note in the comment section down below, let me know what you're after. If you're new around here, please consider hitting the subscribe button, like the video if you did, and if you really liked it, then there's another suggested one just there for you to have a look at. Either way, I'll see you guys in a little bit, or in a few seconds if you do watch that one. Doodle pip!